So very good evening to all the guests and participants. This is a New Year and Happy New Year formally for Cyber Gurukul session. Happy Makar Sankranti. I welcome you all. I am Vijayanand Jha and extremely excited to welcome all our participants and fellow Cyber Gurukul members to yet another insightful and interesting session. Equally honored to introduce our esteemed speakers here. Mr. Govil Rajpal, cyber security evangelist and cyber security architect at Sentinel One. Mr. Pranav Paranjpe, thought leader and DVP InfoSec SDHC Bank. Mr. Harsh Marwa, industry veteran and chief growth officer at iValue Info Solution. Cyber Gurukul is privileged to have you all on board. Looking forward for your treasured, insightful session and thought. Dear CG members, Srinivas, Satish, Shashank, Anil, and Jagdishwar, happy to hear you in between during the session. This session will be moderated by Ms. Harsh Kaur, founding member of Cyber Gurukul. Harsh, now let us take this wonderful opportunity to introduce this session and set the context. Over to you.
Definitely, Vijaya, but first, just to confirm, I hope I am totally audible and the screen is visible, just to confirm once more. Vijay, can you just confirm? Perfect. And Vijay, thanks so much for this, wonderful introduction. Well, I do need to have a special mention that Vijay is our co-founder and he is definitely my partner in crime in every aspect of Cyber Gurukul. At this point, of course, I would not miss this beautiful opportunity to also introduce and for many of us reintroduce Cyber Gurukul. Well, at Cyber Gurukul, learning is exciting and definitely a forever motivation. Cybersecurity knits us together, and our never dying passion and constant growth driving our ambition. Together, enable, engage, empower, being our powerful expression. And yes, a very good evening to one and all present here. Like Vijaya said, Happy New Year and warm wishes of the festive around us. And let's hope that this year and our life, just like Cyber Gurukul, is filled with learnings, hope, and so much more growth, as well as the ambitions that we are proud about. At this point, now let's take the honor of welcoming Mr. Harsh Marwa, Mr. Pranav Paranjpe, and Mr. Govil Rajpal, our esteemed speakers today, and definitely cyber heroes. Govil, Pranav, Harsh, let me have a very, very special thanks to you. I do understand you have really juggled out time from your hectic schedule, and thought leaders like you, gracing our platform today, it genuinely means a lot. And we are extremely keen and excited to actually leverage your treasured insights. But before we actually do that, I would really love to hear, some thoughts, from you before we go ahead. Let's start with Mr. Harsh here.
First of all, a very good evening to all of you and wish you a very happy new year. To start with, all that I can say is, hey Harsh, though you are my namesake, but it looks very, very odd calling another person Harsh as if I'm speaking to myself. But your passion is absolutely infectious and keep that passion on. I think, first of all, I like to congratulate Cyber Gurukul for really coming out with such initiatives. This is something which is absolutely required in our industry, the industry of cybersecurity, where there is so much to do as good guys. I think we are fighting some of the smartest people who are huge in numbers, and they have virtually created an industry on their own. We keep hearing about darknet. I think it is one small and firm step towards creating a bright net, which I think we all must really create as we move forward. So I think very excited to be here, and I will do my best to share my experiences as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harsh. And coming from you definitely means a lot. And I think you very beautifully actually, have defined the purpose for which all of us are here. So thank you so much. Let us now also take, some thoughts from Pranav here. Pranav, welcome to Cyber Gurukul.
Hey Harsh, good evening everyone, and I hope everyone is doing fine. Our topic is revolving around today on the pandemic, so I hope everybody is well and families are doing good. Right, most of us are working from home, and this particular topic revolves around it. But first of all, wishing everyone a very happy new year. I hope 2022 sees the last of this pandemic, and we are back in our offices. I think most of us share the same thought as as we proceed further in this year. But yes, definitely excited to be a part of Cyber Gurukul. I and Harsh, to be very precise, Harsh Kaur, have been discussing a lot about this Cyber Gurukul. I tried a lot, very frankly, to be a part of earlier discussions as well, which I could not, unfortunately, because of some clashes with the meetings, sometimes not keeping well, etc. But very excited. I think I have been a part of a lot of conferences per se, and I don't want to undermine the importance of those conferences, but typically what happens is there is no such platform which is typically meant, as the name suggests, it's a Gurukul, right? So if we follow the way this Gurukul bird comes from, I think it is more to do about sharing knowledge, sharing expertise, whatever little that we know, to be in the in the industry, security industry, for good amount of years. So I think very happy to be a part of this group. I know personally know a lot of people here, and it's always good to hear from the other side of the coin as well. So yes, looking forward to all the interactions from the attendees, looking forward to all the questions, because I'm sure there will be a lot of questions in those. And of course, one point agenda of mine is to take back all these questions and see how do I improve the security posture within my organization. So yes, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Pranav, it's an equal privilege for us to have you here finally after so much time as a speaker, and definitely very well put. And we would be really excited to even hear you out. We'll come back to you very soon. And Govil, we would also love to know what you have to speak on and please share your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Maybe I will start with thanking you, right, for such a great initiative and reaching out to me, right, for this specific session. And the theme topic is very interesting, right? Workforce security, people, right? From last 2 years, we are discussing about users, about people, about humans. And this is a sudden change, right? Over years, entire focus in all organizations was technology, next generation firewalls, next generation AV, next generation WAF, AI, ML, blockchain, and suddenly we all are in center, right? So interesting topic. I will give my best to share my learnings, my knowledge in next 1 hour or so.
Very much, Govil, and very interesting angle that from next generation technologies, now we are the focus. And I'm sure I'm going to, hear out very, very amazing insights from you very soon. So happy to have all of you, Govil, Pranav, and Harsh. And we are very excited. Like I shared, all of us are beaming with enthusiasm to hear out and grapple all that we can learn today. But we will come back to you in just few minutes. And like every time, I'll now take the privilege to actually set the ball rolling. Just, yes. And, like every time, let us first deep dive into what and why before breaking the ice with the topic as well as our esteemed speakers. Just a second. Yes. If I have to talk about this modern era, I'm sure this modern era is the era of explosive growth. And I'm sure we all concur with that. In fact, this is the period or the era where we have been witness to a dramatic transformation in the IT and the digital landscape. These are the trends where we have seen a lot of hybrid IT landscape that ways and distributed workforce. Data, which is a very good thing, of course, data can be truly shared, accessed anytime, anywhere, any device. And it's also equally amazing to see that digitization has become much more inclusive than it was before. And I think figures speak for itself. We are seeing today much more than ever people shopping, studying, and of course doing business online. And it includes the different varied stratas, age groups, and much more. Well, the difficulties of the pandemic, hopefully becoming endemic now, of course, cannot be understated. But I think we all will agree that this true digital transformation is the gift of pandemic. This is the boon here. But of course, with a boon comes a bane. At the same period, we have also seen a huge, exploitation in terms of the cyber crimes. Cyber crimes, which was once a full-fledged business and organized crime, is today a whopping $6 trillion economy in itself, just after US and China, with 600 to 700% growth just in last 2 years, if I have to quote United Nations. But of course, with the growing, exponential growth that we see in digitization, the digital attack surface has also grown exponentially. The vectors, the new vectors that has arrived, the cyber crimes becoming much more advanced, much more sophisticated than before, isn't it? And maybe that, it could also have been possible that this, pandemic induced digitization has actually also helped us to break that false sense of security that we had through the perimeter security. Well, these are the thoughts of mine, but I would really at this point, before moving forward, hear out the thoughts of our participants. Vijay, I would now request you to put the opinion poll. Let us now, listen out and maybe at least have the opinions of whatever participants think in this area. What is the role of cyber security or role of digitization towards the cybersecurity? Do you think it has actually led threat actors to hit a new level of maturity in this period? Or do you think it has broken the false sense of safety? And we've already got some answers started coming up that it's a mix, mixed boon and bane as well. While this opinion poll is going, if someone wants to voice out their opinions, I would love to hear that as well. But till then, let's look what people are saying here. Okay, so interestingly, 70% of who have voted think it's both boon and bane, I think. And about 10% of them think it's a bane, 17% think it's boon. I think there are no other opinions than these three ones. I think everyone has answered, so we can end the poll and publish the results.
Yes, sir.
Great.
I hope result is visible.
Yes. I hope I should also confirm. I hope the result is visible. Can Harsh or Pranav just confirm me with that?
Yeah, they're visible.
Perfect. So, I think there are varied opinions here. Someone would like to voice out their thoughts here. Why, what is that they have put down here? Is it a boon, bane, or both? Let's hear out, and have some interaction before we break the ice with the speakers. I think there are some chats which are coming up. Anyways, no worries. I think we will be definitely deep diving into the what and why in just few minutes. And it's definitely interesting to see, different opinions over here. But before that, let us also, talk about something which we all will concur with. And that is that, of course, we may have different opinions in what has been the role of cyber, digitization towards cybersecurity. But these 2 years, we have seen enabling work from home has actually helped us to adapt to this new normal. But the need of the hour is securing work from home. This is what now will truly help us embrace and navigate this new normal. Hopefully, with the endemic, we are very soon coming up to the actual normalcy as well. And at this point, then, let us not delay further. Let us break the ice with our esteemed speakers and transform from this workplace to workforce security and actually future-proof it. With this, let me now welcome Mr. Pranav Paranjpe. Pranav, I have, 2 words for you. COVID and CISO. I'm sure you would have some interesting stories to tell us for this. Why don't we break the ice with you and the topic with the stories out here?
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, Harsh. So let me begin. I think at the start of the pandemic, or when COVID, it is called as COVID-19, right? So we are looking at somewhere in the year 2019. Frankly, as a CISO of the organization, nobody was aware, nobody was fortunate enough to be, knowing that how long this is going to go, right? So the basic challenges which remained, of course, apart from securing the perimeter of the organization, is how do I allow people, right, to work from home or work from anywhere? Because in my specific case, if I have to talk about, I think some of my workforce obviously were not too comfortable staying back in Mumbai because of the numbers. So we had to take that also into consideration, and then they moved away to their hometowns. So now we had to enable the infrastructure to them, but for how long? It could be very well 2 months, 3 months. It might stretch up to say a couple of years, as well, as we are experiencing right now. So the first challenge, as far as the pandemic set in and the CISO function was, how do I decide what, how long I have to continue in the new normal, right? So that was the first thing which obviously came to to everybody's mind. The second thought process was, organizations, they were used to people working from home, maybe about a 5 to 10% of their workforce, right? So scattered workforce is something which was very limited, say about 5-7% of the workforce. But now we were looking at close to 90-95% of our workforce, operating from home, right? So how do I, scale up the infrastructure of mine, right? Is something which is the next challenge which was posed to the organizations. I'm sure any size of an organization, scaling or upgrading yourself from a 10% work from home, or 10% people operating out of your boundary, to say about approximately 90-95% of your workforce operating out of your boundary, right? That's a big jump, right? So the infrastructure and how do we enable that is something which is a second challenge, which I would say was presented by the COVID. Obviously, upgrading the infrastructure, cost is involved. Organizations were not doing good, as we moved into the pandemic. Obviously the organizations were struggling a lot. So how do I keep a match or mix in between how much of enablement I can achieve as an organization from a commercial standpoint, or business standpoint, and then how I basically recognize the workforce, which is very critical for an organization to run, right? So a kind of a disaster scenario. It's not actually a disaster, but yes, if you look at from a business continuity point of view, then that angle also comes into picture as to who all are our critical resources. At least let me start by enabling them to work from home, right? So that was the third challenge in front of the organizations. How do I limit myself, but at the same time, how do I continue the organization to work the way it was? Having had a word about the technology, we can't keep the processes and the people outside, and people is something which I'll come to the in the later part of our discussion. But as part of the processes as well, since we had we were looking at a new normal, the processes also had to be equally changed. Because normally, for the success of any organization, we would call it as a people, process, technology are the three success pillars of any organization, whether it's a bank or an NBFC, or for that matter any software development organization. So technology is something which the organization can definitely look at, but people side of it and the process side of it is something which we really have to put a lot of effort into, right? So processes also was something which the organizations had to look into. Last but not the least, yes, I would talk about the people side of it. Although initially people started to love working from home, giving time to your family, but later on it become very difficult from the people's perspective as well, because you have to balance your home as well as you have to balance your offices. So the work life balance which we were talking about, that is something which although it was not a lookout of a CISO function, but from an organization's perspective, if I have to talk about, right, definitely that side of it had to be agreed upon, or we had to encourage the people, how do they start working and adjusting to the new normal. As far as the the CISO side of it is attached, or the security angle of it is attached, I think awareness was one very important piece. because this new normal, as we keep on saying that it's a new normal, so people were equally unaware in terms of what are the risks associated with it. So we had to, provide specific, trainings as far as, so a very simple and, very general example which I give is normally, when we talk about the BYOD, the bring your own devices, right? So the people basically started operating on their own devices, but at the same time, they had an access to their office information, right? So what are the do's and don'ts? We would start with very basics of what are the do's and don'ts. A user who is operating from home, but trying to access the organization's information, he or she has to be made aware of that. So it all started from there. Then, of course, as and when we keep on upgrading our infrastructure, the people also have to be kept posted about, how the infrastructure is moving from a kind of a boundary infrastructure to a boundary-less infrastructure, how we are planning to achieve security as well when the people are operating from their own environment. So I think these are four, 5 challenges, which as a CISO, definitely when I was leading a team with my earlier organization and prior to that as well, COVID brought all these challenges together. And that is where, a cyber Gurukul like an institution would have helped us a lot, but yes, never late. I mean, it's always good to be a part of such institution and then trying to learn. But yes, on a lighter note, yes, cyber Gurukul definitely would have, definitely helped us in terms of getting the experiences from the other peers in the industry as well. But yeah, I would like to stop here, and maybe if there are any further questions on this. But to start with, this would be my introductory point in terms of how the COVID pandemic has changed and how the CISO's mindset and the organization's mindset has changed.
Thank you so much, Pranav. And it's really an honor that you think Cyber Gurukul can play an important role. And in fact, Cyber Gurukul is actually a baby of pandemic since we have started a year back. So thanks for putting that. And I think really quite extensive, interesting inputs on the challenges with the era of defined perimeter getting over. I think, of course, this was the time, we had so many questions in mind. How do we enable work from home? Scale up but limit ourselves, keeping so many uncertainties around us, lack of awareness that our users had, and with this total reversal trends of the office to the roaming users also that we have witnessed. At the same time, balancing the budget and the business continuity, I think too much of a Herculean task. And definitely during the session, we will deep dive more into the people process technology. As we say, cybersecurity is not just a technology problem. So I think quite extensive out here and amazing inputs, I must say, Pranav. And, while we are talking, so much on the challenges, I think, Govil, you have been, totally a technology guy here. You would have also seen a lot of transformation in the cybersecurity and threat landscape. So why don't you shed more light on the cybersecurity then and now?
Maybe I want to bring different perspective here, right?
Sure.
So for some of us, work from home is not new, right? Let me take my example, right? For me, I was working from airport, I was working from coffee shop, I was working from hotel, and the only change was, okay, now I cannot travel, I have to start working from home, right? Same laptop, a new monitor, keyboard, laptop, and then start taking calls. Other difference was, earlier I was taking 2 meetings in a day, right? Because I was stuck in traffic jams. My productivity went up. I started taking 5 to 6 calls in a day, right? This was a change for me. So what I was doing, I was speaking to a lot of customers, specifically when this pandemic hit, right? And a lot of customers were reaching out to us, enable VPN connectivity, right? We want our people to connect to our corporate resources via SSL VPN or IPsec VPN. This was a standard change, right? Every organization had to adopt. Then I spoke to one organization, and they were having around 200 SOC analysts supporting almost any large enterprise company organization across the planet. And it was actually for them security operation center from home, right? Now think about a situation, one SOC getting transformed into 200 security operation centers, right? Difficult task. Then I took learnings, right? I spoke to multiple analysts there. I spoke to the person who was actually heading that specific security operation center. and try to divide all their challenges again, the way Pranav mentioned, into process, people, and technology. I will start with technology, right? Of course, nothing happened overnight. It took them around couple of weeks to streamline the security operations center. But the very first thing what they did is again the standard change, which is okay, bring the VPN tunnel for those 200 analysts from split to full, so that every traffic which is coming in from their machines should first come to their data center and then goes out. Then every SOC analyst was given a new mobile device, right, with MDM and mobile threat prevention installed. I hope you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So every SOC analyst was given, right, a mobile device so that they can use these mobile devices only, right, if they want to have multi-factor authentication enabled, and then they can log into their applications. There was a very rigorous intrusive monitoring enabled for those logins, right, for 200 logins, because those were tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 analysts. If any of the analysts machine gets compromised, right, then entire security is under question. They even standardize the browser versions. We saw a lot of attacks, threats coming in via browsers. So they even standardize, okay, these people can actually log in from one specific browser only. And then moving next, right, a lot of trainings were done. So when we join the organization, we do some basic awareness security trainings, and then L&D department never comes back. Okay, you want to revisit those trainings. So every analyst was asked to do those trainings again and again, right? And then I have never been asked by anyone whether your Wi-Fi password is safe or not, what encryption algorithm we are using on our Wi-Fi routers. They have been trained on, right, what should be the password of their Wi-Fi routers, right? Every 15 days, they should change their passwords. What should be the encryption algorithm being used on those routers? Because at home, we don't have those next generation of firewalls, right? It is a plain open internet. So those Wi-Fi can be the entry point. And when it comes to processes, right, every fortnightly, there was a phishing simulation being done on those 200 analysts, so that they should be safe, secure, and they are safe when they are actually accessing customer infrastructure. Interestingly, they did the COVID simulation as well to test the business continuity. They declared, okay, 30 people out of 200 are actually down with COVID, and then now we have to run the operation with the rest of the people. And some interesting things, right? No one ever thought that there will be no power backup, right? When I'm working on an incident, let's say there is a phishing incident, I'm working and there is no power. So technically that organization delivered UPS, right, to their homes, right? 200 UPS devices were delivered. And some other stuff like monitor, keyboards, so that productivity, user experience, analyst experience should not go down. That's the change we saw, right? Again, it was not done overnight. It took them a couple of weeks, but it's been now 2 years. That one SOC has been transformed into 200 security operation centers.
I think that is really something we may have, a lot of us, actually not me, would have realized this. Yeah, that's true that, work from home or hybrid culture is actually not new for so many of us, including me, Govil, and some of us here. But yeah, converting from one to actually 200 SOC, that I think I cannot imagine that. And I think, Govil, you actually brought a very critical point out here. And, the risk of compromise, the struggle that things get so much more complicated. I think I just can't imagine that. And I think, thinking about trainings and phishing simulation, standard browser, I don't think this was something we really had to, delve deeper before, because this is something which was already done. The next generation firewall and technologies were adopted for offices, but now when it comes to home, how do you actually enable it continuously? And, especially for the users, a lot of them who are not even aware about these things in the office, that would have not been felt so much. So I think very, very interesting angle, Govil. And Harsh, let's put it a little different way for you.
Just to add to this, I think
Please, Satish,
some of my friends received the tables, chairs at their home at the cost of office,
okay.
just to make the employees work comfortably. So see, we keep talking about, I think I know every time I contradict to the technology. Okay, but the thing is, it's not only about the technology, getting people in a comfort zone and making them work 24/7. Because see, I think the whole culture has changed now. We keep talking about 8 hours working, 10 hours working, 12 hours working. Now this has completely gone into a different aspects. So we are available 24/7. Okay, so getting people 24/7 in a comfort zone and making them happy in terms of saying that, boss, we are taking care of you.
Very much,
And I
Satish.
think many of
Sorry,
the organizations, I think typically MNCs, I remember one of my friend who works for an Italian company. Okay, so the day the pandemic was declared, I think they received the table, chair, their desktops, monitors, everything at home. And today also they are working from home. They said, I think you are not going to come to office till everything gets normal.
I think that's really an interesting angle, and I always love that Satish contradicts our points so that we actually can have a 360 degrees approach. And very interesting points. Of course, this is a time when we say, we have to map business with technology. As much as we have to think about user security, their productivity, the well-being, superior experience is also something that has become very critical today. And this is something which we will discuss quite a bit in detail in just few minutes. But yeah, connected to this, I think Harsh, you can help us understand, how is exactly, technology perceived if I have to talk about the enterprise users and the hackers. Let's take it this way for you. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting.
Thanks, Harsh. So I think very compelling thoughts from Pranav, Govil, and all that I can say is, further substantiating on what Govil said, 200 security analysts or incident responders for a single organization. I think look at an organization with 1,000 employees with one single perimeter now at 1,000 perimeters, right? Every single person working from home was a perimeter, and the perimeter was very vulnerable. Now that's just a comment to really kickstart my inputs. Now, technology adoption has been a very seamless evolution as far as we all humans are concerned, right? Now, whether it is technology in cybersecurity, whether it is any other technology, I think the adoption of technology is seen as by a lot of businesses building a competitive advantage or reducing time to market or to really transform the organizations. So I would say that the good guys, right, the businesses typically look at technology more from an angle of convenience and a differentiator. Okay, and technology has been, and I think the pandemic proved it all, that there couldn't be a situation where technology could have come to our help and our rescue. As Govil said, a lot of companies came and said that get me a VPN, but then they realized that layer 3 VPN is vulnerable. So get me a layer 7 VPN, and we all got exposed on technology, which we never got, right? You look at last 10 to 15 years, right? Every single organization has been embracing digitization with open arms, right? And everybody has taken steps. People have adopted technologies like cloud. People have adopted technologies like mobile applications. People have gone to IoTs, industrial IoTs, blockchains. And post-pandemic, we hear things like SASE, though it came out earlier, but I think secure access service edge became a huge topic in every single forum. If SASE is not the talk of the forum, I think it's incomplete. We started hearing about something called a zero trust, which is a very fundamental thing in today's parlance, because all this while we have been only trusting people, we've been trusting applications, we've been trusting data, we've been trusting infrastructure, right? Now, while this has been used by businesses with open arms, and as I said, that organizations have grown leaps and bounds to say, really serve their customers and create a wow factor in front of their customers. And what better example than in banking? Pranav is here. I think the way some of the top banks in the country and globally, I think the way they have brought in alternate technologies, I'm sure most of the people have not really visited the banks in the last few years. I think we feel so comfortable using these technologies, and they've evolved with so much of maturity. But look at the flip side. a lot of companies say, in fact, one of my earlier companies says that we are in generation 5 of risk landscape. Some companies say we are in next generation. Some companies say it differently. But what has evolved over a period of time is that every single technology got inducted, and there was a learning curve given to people, learning curve given to businesses to really induct those technologies, operationalize them, and manage them in the best possible manner. Now, the biggest challenge which has happened during this pandemic, which I also call it as infodemic in most of the time, because the way the so-called cybersecurity practitioners, the way the IT practitioners work day in and day out, which I call it as a phase of scramble to see to it that businesses are up and running and people are connected to the businesses, right? Was a classic example how all these people really saw to it businesses are lit, right? But at the same time, in this phase of scramble, I think a lot of security aspect took a backseat. I think we ignored a few things. And let's be very fair. You know, you look at endpoint as a technology. When did the first PC came, right? We've been using antivirus for donkey years. From antivirus, we came to next generation antivirus. From next generation antivirus, we came to something called as an EDR, which is endpoint detection response. Then we now have something called as, you know, managed threat hunting, all that, right? It has taken good 30 years typically, and the maturity curve is this. But look at cloud, look at IoT, look at blockchain, look at industrial IoT. I think the people who are developers, the people who are practitioners, and the people who are users have not gone through the learning curve. And that is why the hackers embraced all these opportunities with open arms. You know, just to kind of substantiate with a little few numbers, when we say that 95% of the cloud breaches happen because of misconfigurations, it's a very classic example that the learning curve of the people has not been in line with the adoption of technology. And that is where the hackers, if you really look at the research of Thales, which came out in October of 2021, they said globally 40% of the organizations actually have been compromised because of their cloud adoption. You look at another aspect. You look at the mobile apps. You know, the amount of money we spend on endpoints and all of that, I don't think even 1/100th of money we spend on our mobile apps, though Google did mention about MDM and MTP. Very few organizations take those technologies and see to it that they look at 360-degree threat of mobile. But my earlier company says, which is Checkpoint, and this research again came somewhere around December of 2021, that there will be a multi-fold increase in malware as far as mobile apps are concerned. The next big focus is going to be on the malware of the mobile apps as far as the hackers are concerned. Let's look at another aspect, right? Kaspersky research says that from January to June of 2021, there were 1.5 billion breaches as far as IoT devices were concerned. Now, whether those breaches were because of default passwords, whether those breaches were because the manufacturer of the IoT device does not understand security, they have not been built keeping security in mind. But the reality is that 1.5 billion in just 6 months of the start of the year in 2021, which was virtually more than double in the vis-a-vis entire 2020. Now, I think the point which I'm trying to make here is technology adoption is going to be, a compulsive and in a lot of cases, a real ask by the businesses. But I think what we should focus on is the weakest link in the chain. You know, in this hyper-connected world, today the hackers get on to your so-called IT estates from one single mobile application, which has not been protected well. And Pranav did use the word BYODs and all, which we have been hearing for so many years, right? He can actually, with lateral movements, venture into your organization, so-called crown jewels, and the name of the organization will be in bold letters for wrong reasons, right? So I think the fundamental thing is, while inducting technology, it is very important that we look at it from a 360-degree perspective. and also from take a hacker's view as to whom are we fighting against. But I think both from businesses side as well as from the bad guy side, I think there is an opportunity and a convenience for both of them. And I think it did come out in the poll very, very distinctly. So back to you, Harsh.
I think a lot of takeaways here, thought-provoking insights. I must say that definitely I agree, Harsh, that we are living in times of infodemic, especially keeping in mind that users, which has been the current weakest links, are the parameter today. And of course, I think this is a time we really need to focus on balancing the learning curve and technology adoption. But of course, that was not possible with the pandemic, and the technology to be, technology kind of, if it had to rescue us, it also need to be rescued. So definitely, and I think you brought quite a bit, the different trends, cybersecurity then and now. You covered quite extensively that also. I think the different technologies related to cloud, IoT, blockchain, MDM, and the importance of the modern framework, SASE and ZTA, which of course we can cover up in the road ahead also in detail. And yes, taking the hacker's view, I think that was also something which was very interesting. When we've discussed so much, of course, we do realize that users is the center today. So why don't we also understand a little more on, what is the reason behind the user friction, if, as we always say in the technology adoption. Vijay, why don't you put the polls and let us now also have, just like, Harsh mentioned about the hacker's view, let's take a user view, because we all are users here as well as being cybersecurity professionals. So what do you think? What is the biggest reasons, behind the resistance to technology? I think quite interesting. At this point, 64% feel it's lack of user education and awareness. About 4 to 5% technology needs to be more business oriented. And we have 1/3 who feels that it's more like attitude needs to be changed because there is a resistance to change. So I think very interesting poll. Let's wait for a few more seconds and take a few more views out here. Okay, I think we can end the poll now, Vijaya, and we can share the results with everyone before we, move forward. Definitely a feed for thought for all of us, and definitely keeping this in mind, we will now take the next, kind of a round on the road ahead. I hope everyone is able to check out the results.
I hope there is no comments, so there is no other thoughts.
Okay. Perfect. I think now that we have seen what all of us think in terms of the user view into adapting technology as users, of course. Let us now, move ahead, and let's this time now come to you, Govil, and let's take your view into this. I think you put very interesting point on the, one SOC becoming 200 SOC. I think that was a very good deep dive and a case study into what has happened. And you did share, the actions which were taken. But yeah, of course, that did sound complex. Now, what do you think in times like today? What is the role of technology, and how do we exactly go ahead into future-proofing workforce or the user-centric security? Let's go to you. Yes.
I think this is very vast discussion, a lot of angles involved, right? But I will try to touch maybe 3 different aspects: endpoint, mobile, and SASE, because we are discussing SASE a lot. But before I do that, right? And I completely take point from Harsh, right? I always believe, build your defensive controls with offensive mindset, right? Hackers feel, right? If you don't know how threat actors are actually getting into the organizations, you will never ever be able to actually build controls, right? To secure your assets, data, your crown jewels. Now, before we discuss road ahead, what problems we have seen, maybe 2-3 minutes I want to spend there. What was the trend, right, in last 2 years? So trend number 1 we all saw was around ransomware, right? We all know ransomware, right? 2017 WannaCry made headlines, and then we all started hearing, okay, ransomwares are there, data gets encrypted. But we saw the real innovation in last 2 years when it comes to the ransomware. The real innovation was, it was just not doing encryption to get $200 or $300 because we all were getting better and better in taking backups. Okay, there is an encryption. I can restore my data back. Everything is back to normal. Who will pay money, right? Somebody is building a complex, sophisticated malware for months, and then we all decide, okay, I want to restore my data, and actually threat actor is not getting anything. So there was a group named Maze. They innovated idea of double extortion. Okay, so when double extortion came in, so first threat is somebody will do the data exfiltration, then they will encrypt your data. Okay, you decide, I don't want to pay ransom because I have my data backup. But these threat actors know compliance better than us, right? They are calling, let's say, CFO. You will have penalty of $6 million because we will publish your data on internet, maybe GDPR compliance, right? Versus you pay us $3 million and your name will not be there on internet. So that's how this innovation started, from single extortion to double extortion. And then we saw in Cassia supply chain attack, that's where the triple extortion was being used. Okay, don't compromise 100 customers, compromise a MSSP. And this MSSP has 100 customers, everybody will be compromised. And we will have money coming in from 100 different customers. And we saw one financial company, CNA, right? They have set the record for all of us on this planet by paying $40 million after a ransomware breach, right? Second trend we all saw where the innovation was around mobile, and Harsh spoke about mobile, right? We all take mobile very light. India specifically had made headlines twice when it comes to mobile threats. I'm sure you all have heard about Pegasus, right? Pegasus malware known for actually doing surveillance for activists in India. And it was just a single WhatsApp, missed call on a WhatsApp, which was required to compromise a mobile device. You make a missed call on a WhatsApp, you don't just pick that phone, your phone is compromised, and then somebody else sitting somewhere will do the complete surveillance of your mobile devices. And I still see when I speak to different organizations, there is a lot of confusion. Okay, we have MDM, we are good, right? But MDM is solving different problems, and MTP, mobile threat prevention and mobile threat defense solutions, are actually solving different problems. But we saw it back in 2016, one assassination, right, of activists was being done by this specific malware only. World's richest man, Jeff Bezos, was being compromised, right? His phone was being compromised. There are organizations on internet, they are paying millions of dollars if you give them 0-day exploit of mobile devices. So this is a problem number two. Again, 24/7 connected. We say all SaaS applications have multi-factor authentication, but their passcodes, one-time passwords, are actually coming onto these mobile devices only. So if somebody has access to this device, they can actually log into all those applications where you have MFA enabled. Next trend, supply chain attacks, right? Again, not new. I was speaking to one of the customer 2-3 days back while doing a POC actually, and I saw one specific binary, CCleaner, right? Most of the user actually download that CCleaner in the hope this will clean my machine. But technically what was done, and that's how the supply chain attack started back in 4 or 5 years, somebody did backdoor this CCleaner. 2.5 million people downloaded that specific binary in the hope, okay, my machine will be clean, but actually those 2.5 million people were compromised. But that's how this journey of story of supply chain started. Then we all heard about SolarWinds, and one interesting fact Microsoft chairman made, right, Brad Smith. Their Microsoft research around SolarWinds was more than 1,000 hackers actually worked together to launch this campaign. How many people we have in any organization to ensure the security? 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe big organization, right? 100 people. So 10, 20, 100 people has to fight with a group of 1,000 hackers who did launch this specific campaign. And then recently we heard about Log4j as well. So a lot of supply chain attacks, and they are getting increased specifically in terms of sophistication. And we have seen that. And the last trend, right? This is not new. We have seen that. I started my career in 2006, phishing was a problem. In 2021, phishing is a problem. And maybe next one decade, phishing will remain a problem. And maybe interestingly, why it has been increased, because a lot of organizations are actually moving on to SaaS, right? Let's say Office 365. 3 months old data, 300 million subscribers are using Office 365. So technically where users are, that's where threat actors will be. And we are seeing a lot of phishing attacks, specifically around MS Office and specifically around Office 365. Number one phishing kit on dark web, right? You will feel a page which is similar to Office 365, and we end up giving the credentials. Now, taking all these 4 problems, right? Innovation in ransomware, sophistication in supply chain, then mobile, right? Another beast in our pocket. And then last is phishing. So I will specifically talk about endpoints, mobile, and SASE when I said, and I will go back to the basics, right? Very first thing every organization should do is they have to categorize their users. So when I say categorize their users, employees and contractors. So generally we can bucketize every user in any organization into these 2 buckets only. Either they are employees or they are contractors or third-party suppliers. Once this is done, second step is what different devices, different types of devices they are using. And again, you can technically divide devices into 2-3 buckets: managed devices for employees and unmanaged devices for contractors and third-party suppliers. And those devices further can be categorized whether those are endpoints or mobile devices. Once we have these basics set, okay, employees can use 2 different set of devices. One is managed and second is, let's say, managed endpoint, and second is managed mobile device. And contractors will always have unmanaged devices because they are not part of my domain. They are not part of my Active Directory. I don't have any control on those devices. So my security policy and governance actually should fall under these 2 buckets, because certain things I can do on my managed devices, certain things I cannot do on my unmanaged devices. Zero trust, we all have been speaking, right? So when we talk about zero trust, we are at maybe 10,000 feet, right? But the moment we start implementing zero trust, maybe not much special technology is required. Whatever you have right now, those technologies can be used actually to implement at least or a starting point for the zero trust policies, architecture in your infrastructure. And when I see at a ground level, zero trust is like adaptive, automated, compliance-based, risk-based policies, right? For every device, for every user. You don't require some special technologies. Some basics can help us to achieve this. And again, from a threat actor perspective, again, I'm going back for a second. Whenever a threat actor is building a malware, the whole idea is how I will run this malware onto an endpoint, right? And over the years, the focus was how I can secure my perimeter, right? There are a lot of issues still at network level, perimeter level. That's where we will never be able to achieve 100% prevention. And endpoint is the only technology, I would say, right? 30-year-old technology. And this technology is actually consuming best of breed AI and ML technologies. What we can do, what we can see, what we can bring from endpoints might be we will not be able to get from network-based technologies. Again, a generation we have seen, right? AV, NGAV, EDR, MDR, and now industry is talking about XDR as well, right? So bring that platform approach. And over the years, there is a convergence. One thing we all have to realize is we will never be able to get 100% prevention, right? Never, ever, not possible. We have seen that. So right use of proactive and reactive technologies, or maybe right use of NGAV or EDR technology on the endpoint will help us in the future. So there has to be a detection, there has to be a visibility, and there has to be automation to do the response actions. Because every user is distributed, heterogeneous. Organizations are getting complex. Someday some user will click on some link, right? And something will go down. We need to have that visibility coming in onto our infrastructure. And same approach, in fact, goes for mobile devices as well. So maybe 2-3 minutes on SASE. right?
Govind, I would love
Yes.
to definitely hear on that, and it's, we're very keen to know that. But let me just come back to you in few minutes, and
Sure,
also
sure.
to take the next, viewpoints. And I must say that you did cover quite a, digging into the what and why. What is the problem, and what, how do we start with the solution also? So very quickly, it's very interesting to see the trends, like you mentioned, hackers getting much more innovative and sophisticated, focusing on the trends of mobile threats, supply chain attacks, as well as phishing, of course. And the solution is, of course, first step is basic visibility. For example, if you talk about zero trust architecture, which you did touch upon, before actually, verifying your users, we need to have those user buckets, employees versus contractors. Before actually validating the device, let's understand the managed and the unmanaged devices. And before limiting this access, let's understand a little more on that as well. And I think the focus that needs to be more on endpoint security is very well taken. And of course, today is the time of simplification, integration, and automation. So very well put. We did cover, kind of touch upon a lot on the cornerstones. Harsh, why don't you, continue with this and share your thoughts about it?
See, I think, Harsh, to be honest, to build a future-proof business, future-proof workforce, I think whenever there is a foggy day, what do? We go back to the fundamentals. We bring the window pane of the, suppose we are driving of the car and just follow that yellow or white line. All the technologies fail. None of it works, right? So I think it's time when in the last couple of years, we have found things to be very different. It's been a foggy world. Not too many people had the answers because people did not really, from a historical data point of view, had this kind of an experience and exposure to fight so-called the pandemic or the infodemic. Now, let me come to the cornerstones. I think right from the time cybersecurity really came into play, which some people say is early 90s, some people say is late 1980s, when the first virus typically came into play. Ever since then, we have been saying one consistent thing, which Pranav also brought about, is people, process, technology. And I think the only thing which I see getting added to it is management. So it is people, process, technology, and management, because it has to actually flow top down, because it has become a very integral part of the business. It's not a good to have anymore. But let's look at each of these aspects. We always speak people first or people before the process and technology, but let's look how our spend has been or what importance we give to each one of these core pillars. We as Indians and globally also, we have seen that we've been throwing boxes to a problem in the last so many years. You have a problem, you throw a box. You have a problem, you throw a technology, find an answer for some time. The hackers will move on to the next level, and then we will pick up another box. And today, the biggest misery for the businesses and good people is that we are surrounded by boxes which are obsolete, which are relevant, which are futuristic, but every single box brings in a potential vulnerability, right? But if you look at the investments, I think we have been investing left, right, and center, and every single security practitioner or a leader within the organization goes in front of the board and says, "A, we are still from a risk posture perspective, not too great." And most of the times, 90% of the times, it's spoken about technology or maybe about process. Now, let me come to the processes. I think we in India have been a compulsive user of processes in the last maybe 2 decades or a little more, because we became an integral part of global world. And you look at the backend processes of the Fortune so-called, 1,000 companies which typically run out of India, whether India is a business or India is a back office or India as a research center. So I think processes have come to us from the Western world over a period of time, and we have embraced these processes very well. And these processes typically define our standard operating procedures, the best procedures we need to kind of adopt or adapt, keeping in mind our businesses and risk to business. But let's look at the people. The people aspect is at the core. People cut across. People cut across processes. People cut across technologies. People are developers of technologies. People are practitioners of technologies. People are users of technologies. People are developing processes. People are there to see to it that the processes are adhered, and there are users of processes. But let me tell you, you look at from any point of view, the investments on people have not happened over a period of time. It's only the pandemic where organizations really started realizing that they virtually have got their people out in the open. They have their device, whether company owned, managed, or their own device, which is unmanaged. And they would typically directly come onto the data center or go to the cloud, and they're all in a vulnerable situation. So I think my few points here that if we really want to build a future-proof workspace, keeping the workforce as the cynosure, and as I said, the workforce has to be the cynosure because it cuts across. Let me give you a few examples. First of all, I think we need to think like hackers. I think Govil did touch upon it. You know, it is very important to really take cognizance of two things. What am I going to protect, or what am I supposed to protect, and whom I'm supposed to protect against? I think both sides there are gaps. The liberation of data, liberation of applications, liberation of infrastructure, and now liberation of people have brought so much of complexity for an IT practitioner or an IT leader or a security leader that it is very difficult to take the complete control of the asset base which they have. And assets, I include people as well, right? And unless and until you really take the assets into control, you will never be able to really safeguard them. That's point number one. Point number two is that look at it from the hacker point of view. They know it all. They do reconnaissance on us. I think when I say that we have to act like a hacker, it is very important that we use some of the technologies which are prevalent for so long. The scanning technologies. I don't want to kind of go and name the companies because I don't want to promote any single company here. But scanning technologies have been used. Vulnerability assessment software has been used for donkey years. Pen testing has, though people call it as a very mundane thing, but I call it as one of the most critical things for an organization to have a red team view or typically view of an external practitioner. That's point number one. Point number two is speed and agility. You look at it, see, we have it all. I'll take you to 2017, March 14th, when Microsoft came out with WannaCry vulnerability and also the patches for all the versions of Windows. And then we had Havoc in May of 2017, where, you know, every single organization all across the globe, wherever the hackers could typically reach and find the low-hanging fruit, they got compromised. The good guys in the businesses and the people had 1.5 months plus to really patch what the WannaCry vulnerability was, right? But they did not. And I can tell you, some similar things are happening on Log4j. We hear every single day, but I can tell you, it's very important to really understand that the version upgrades have to happen very, very quickly so as to we really build foolproof. This is typically a culture, right? The next thing which I want to define is role definition within people. You know, 99% of the DLP implementations in my, maybe till around 5 years back, I witnessed that they were all faulty DLP implementations. And you know, there was only one single reason. The raw material to DLP, which is data classification, was done wrongly. Ideally, it was supposed to be done by the business guys, but it was actually done by the IT guys who have absolutely no clue about the role of data and which data is critical, which data is confidential, which data has to go in which bucket and all of that. And I principally feel that change we can see happening because suddenly the data privacy in GDPRs and PDP India and all that has brought in a lot of change. This is again a cultural shift. Let me look at, say, another aspect. I think we need to, before really coming and inducting technologies into our so-called IT, growing IT estates, we need to be experts. You know, there are three kinds of people in an organization: people who develop technology, people who practice technology, and people who use technology. People who develop and practice technology have to be absolute experts in understanding that what could be potential vulnerabilities. As we talked about earlier, 95% of the breaches in cloud happen because of misconfigurations. There is a shared sense of responsibility. We think that the cloud provider is going to take care, but the onus of data and applications is completely on the business and the people who run that business, right? You look at typically some of the other examples of Govind did talk about mobility. I did talk about mobility. How many practitioners have really realized that with mobile apps which are growing, it is very important to think beyond an MDM and actually do testing on the mobile devices? It's the time when we do cyber campaigns, where we do something called as tabletop exercises, where we do something called as cyber games, because fundamentally mitigation technologies and people and processes of yesterday will not be able to address the risk landscape of today. That's a very, very fundamental thing. Last but not the least, that's a very beautiful principle which has been kind of evolving now that people have got liberated. They don't sit behind the so-called solid perimeters of the organization and working from home. All this while, people have been looking at finding flaws in technology, whether it is on the bad guys, whether it is on the good guys. It's time when technology have to look gap in people. Okay, I'm privy to some of the very compelling applications which have come as SaaS models, where they will pick up logs in real time or in batches, do a complete rigorous analysis of the users. Who are the users who were trying to do unauthorized access? Who were the users who fell prey to phishing attacks or phishing campaigns? Who were the users who went on to sites which are not permissible by or attempted to go to those sites? And they come out with a list that these are the top 10% most critical and dangerous users for the organization. Because every single user getting compromised means a potential risk for the organization. So I think in the last, all that I want to say is that I think invest appropriately. People investment should have been made long back. Govind touched about very important points. What version of browser? Okay, standardize some of the things which need to be standardized. But that we studied 30 years back. But I don't think we ever did it. But we only started doing it when we lost control of people and people started working from home. So I think those are my few observations. We have it all in people, process, technology. All that we need to do is we need to prioritize keeping our business risks and also the understanding of the risk landscape and the ability of the hackers. Right. Thank you.
Perfect, Harsh, you covered, I think, almost all the points out here. And I think it's really time, like Harsh said, people cut across technology and process. People are the ones who create and adopt technology. We have best of technologies. We have made so many investments out here. And they are the one who develop process. And like he said, we have actually had the best of SOPs around us. But how much have we actually invested on people? And I think this is again a gift of pandemic, that we are actually investing on workforce security and focusing so much more on it. And I think to do that, we have to now actually in real sense bring the missing piece, and that's the user, the role of the users and the business context, whether it could be data protection or maybe it could be the whole of the cybersecurity also. And I think it was very critical that he also brought about the development, the practitioners and the ones who are using technologies. And as the practitioners or developing of technology, we really need to get more expertise in this area. I think he also brought some very good points like misconfiguration of the policies. Of course, there we come into the people, process, technology and management, as Harsh mentioned. And cyber campaigns, games, I think that's the need of the hour, definitely. And it's time that technology is used to see gaps in people. So I think amazing inputs, great ones here. Pranav, now let's come to you. I think we had so much focus on the user now. I think you being in a BFSI industry, in every aspect, you actually have to manage user security, the experience, and of course, productivity. So, what are your measures towards that? Let's take that up now.
Harsh, I would like to add that people become focused now with this forum. Okay, so we have to invest in people. But one more important point is that cyber criminals are more organized and more coordinated. Okay, and now it's not limited to enterprise; it's country level. Okay, so when we have digital banking, our economy, everything is there. So Pranav, I would like you to cover people and how people can get more connected. Okay.
Very much. I think very important observation. I'm sure Pranav can add here. Over to you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, Vijay, for the last comment, because I was about to touch base on that point. And thanks, Harsh, for setting up the tone, because I think we had great insights from Govil and Harsh in terms of, how, if I have to really sum up, I think from a technology standpoint and how, the processes have to be mature enough to understand, what is the ask the people have these days. Because all this while we have been discussing about enabling factors, from a technology standpoint, from a process standpoint, but at the end of the day, whether that technology is able to suffice the requirements of the user by with 3 pointers which you rightly pointed out. One is, how do we manage the security as far as the organization data is concerned, and as far as the users aspect of it or user side of it is concerned. Then of course, how is the user's productivity impacted? So typically, I mean, my earlier boss used to say, whenever you are a CISO, you are always a function which is looked at as a roadblock, right? Because if you want to have internet access, people, would go back to the CISO. He would say, no, boss, I can't give you the full internet access, right? If you want to enable the VPN, I would say as a CISO, I will only give you bits and pieces of what your, requirements are. So typically, on a lighter note, if the CISO function is looked at as a roadblock. But let me tell you, I think it's a double-edged sword. And by this pandemic, what we have been taught, as the thought leaders or the market enablers or organizational enablers, is that we really have to look at balancing the security aspects of it. How the user's productivity is not impacted, and at the same time the users have to be given the benefits in terms of how their experiences. So let me briefly talk about stuff which even Govil pointed out, and then of course Harsh also pointed out. So first things first, of course, when we talk about the user security aspects of it, we have plethora of tools. As I mentioned earlier as well, it's kind of a balance that you have to strike. How much I can spend as a CISO of the organization on security, but at the same time not compromising the security of it, but at the same time keeping the budgets in mind. So the X cost which has been given to me, or X budget which has been given to me, how am I able to manage the security of my organization? You might have n number of tools, the plethora of tools which we talked about: SASE, ZTNA, MTM, MTM, mobile threat management solutions, zero trust solutions. So we keep on naming those technologies. I mean, I fondly remember when I was implementing an EDR solution into my organization, I met another OEM who said, "Sir, why are you going for an EDR? Why can't you go for an XDR?" Right? So in a span of a couple of months, you would feel that, oh God, I'm implementing something in my organization which is possibly obsolete in the next 6 months or so. Right? So it's again a balance, how we have to strike. The next important aspect related to security of the users or my information is of course the awareness. Now, Harsh, I think briefly talked about the tabletop exercises, the cyber games. I fondly talk about a lot of animated videos to be circulated across the organization to make awareness a great user experience, because they have to basically associate themselves with whatever has been given as a training to them. So I think that's a very important aspect when it comes to the awareness of the users. Then of course functional trainings. So a lot of times the organizations do mistake between what is an awareness training and what is a functional training, right? So these functional training aspects also have to be taken care of when we are talking about users who are the end, I would say, the touch points where the information either is collected or that has been distributed to the end customers. So the functional trainings is one more aspect which will contribute to the user security aspect of it. The third thing, I mean, the second thing which I would want to talk about is of course the user's productivity. How do we facilitate putting the security solutions into place, but at the same time not hampering or giving a positive experience to increase the productivity of the users. So we briefly talked about, I mean, that's a great example which Harsh gave us in terms of the implementation of DLP. Now, DLP is again a I mean, it's like a sword which has two edges. Now, unfortunately, if it is not implemented correctly, right, if you do not have the data classification implemented, I think it's going to backfire big time. And I have a couple of experiences with the DLP implementations where we did not venture into the data classification aspect of it, and we wanted to, you know, jump onto the DLP because, you know, the time was short. But let me tell you, that did big time backfire on us, and we had to go back to the traditional methodology of defining the data classification and then implementing stuff. So ease of access, you know, why I gave this DLP example is, if the user's productivity has to be increased, I think the ease of access has to be really looked into as far as the users are concerned. So while implementing any technology solutions, we as the implementers, or, you know, the security protectors, I should say, of the organization, I think ease of access to the users is very important. The second thing is, of course, the processes. Now, these days, you know, as soon as we talk about the data privacy thing coming into picture, the earlier phrase, or, you know, it's still prevalent in the market, which is called as the regulatory compliance. So the regulators have been really big time coming on to the organizations. Now I have started working with the bank, so I understand, you know, how tight the the regulatory compliance is. So unfortunately or fortunately for the organization, you know, it becomes really challenging to set the processes or to mold the processes according to what the regulatory compliance aspects are, or regulatory guidelines are. So that is something which we need to really streamline as far as the processes are concerned, and attached to the regulatory compliance side of it. Obviously, the third thing, and which is something which we will not invest much time into, is the setting up the infrastructure, or making the infrastructure ready, which will provide the advancements to the users, so that a very simple example would be, say, organizations started paying for the broadband bills of employees who are working from home, right? That's a very simple example, right? But at the end of the day, that sense of belongingness comes to the users, that that is an aspect which the organization is saving on from a cost perspective, but then they are passing that saving to the infrastructure, or the end users infrastructure to be built at home. So these are very small bits and pieces, but we have to join all these dots to enhance the user experience. Last but not the least, once we have proper user security in place, and maybe the user's productivity is also taken care of, obviously if the user feels that these are the two aspects which have been taken care of by the organization, the user's experience, of course, is enhanced. I think he starts feeling more attached to the organization, and he starts putting more than 110%. As it is in the pandemic, people have been giving more than 150%. But yes, that sense of belongingness with the users, they also try to manage their security, as well as how they are managing their day-to-day work activities, right? I think, just give me a minute. I'm having a bad throat. Just give me a minute.
No problem. Just to remind participants, this question answer session will be followed. So guests are eager to answer your doubts or queries. You can put it in the chat box, or you can raise hand once we are done with the regular session. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijaya.
I think I was about to sum it up. Apologies. I have been running with bad throat for the last 2-3 days. I just wanted to sum it up that since we are on the topic of how we are looking at the new normal and enabling the workforce in the future, I think the CISO's role, or the security professionals' roles, is really cut out, and we have to be the enablers as far as the security of the organization is concerned, from an organization's perspective, and also from a user's perspective. We have that added responsibility of allowing people at their ease in terms of how do we set up the infrastructure, how do we allow them to work, and then how their experience is all about. So I think that's where I would really want me to stop in the interest of time as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pranav. I must say it's like bang on and concise, as well as all-rounded, and very true. Technology needs to suffice the user requirements, and when we say user requirement, it has to cover not only security but also the productivity and well-being. And I think that sense of belongingness, especially which you mentioned, investments in the workforce, work from home investments, I think that is definitely a focus and should remain a focus for the coming time. And Pranav, I do agree that maybe CISO was a roadblock or perceived before, but I think it is truly becoming an enabler of business today, very critical at times like today. And I think it's very that EDR XDR example. I think it really does mention that technology actually is always going to become obsolete. But yeah, investments in the people is equally critical out here, and it's time. This is the way. Investing on people is how we will be able to actually become, make the cyber security much more palatable, simplified, and inclusive. So I think very much important. You also did touch upon the awareness versus the functional training. And when we talk about making technologies user friendly, I think the focus equally should be on the ease of access of these technologies to the users, also something very critical. And you did touch upon streamlining the processes with the compliance, GDPR, and the different RBI guidelines. Of course, these are like the minimum practices that we need to follow. So I think quite a bit takeaways for all of us today. If we have any queries currently, let's quickly take, one or two
Yes,
questions.
Satish has raised a hand. So Satish,
Yes, Satish, please. Over
Yeah,
to
I
you.
think again something interesting. I keep talking to people. I always say adapt or perish. Okay, so technology is going to grow, risk is going to grow, but the only thing is, I think what Paul gave us a right picture, saying that make people aware that this is the kind of risk you are carrying, and the more you make people aware, I think the situation will change. So today, I think if you look at all MNCs, so when we keep talking about processes, why these processes are taking so much of importance? Because if MNCs are going to need a business outside India, they only insist on processes. So you have to be certified. Then only you can get the business, right? GDPR certified, or maybe ISO 27001 certified, or any of these certification. Then only you'll get the business. So now to get this business, we have to get certified. But the important part is take people into confidence when you're doing these activities. Okay, so I keep talking about that the role-based access, which is very critical. Okay, now role-based access will actually give you a complete picture. So normally we keep saying, I think I always keep shouting on the CISOs. So whenever I send a CC up to my security guy, ye nahi ho sakta hai. That was the first thing which comes from him. Then maybe you need to spend some time with CISO saying that was why it is important. And then we get the approval. It can be exceptional or it can be as per the process, but important thing is we should understand the criticality of the business. So that is where I think functional training plays a very important role. So awareness and functional training will always enable even user. So I will not blame user anytime, because user is not completely transparent. You put the policy, I think DLP, as Pranav rightly said, one of the major failure in many organizations. The reason is even the person who designs that setup is not aware of the business altogether. He looked at everything as a technology. But today, if you want to survive, technology cannot be a solution to a problem. You have to be business-oriented technologist. So I always call it as I'm not a technology guy. I'm a business IT. I want to work closely with the business rather than working with the technology people. And we are technology enablers. We are not the technology implementers. I think that is what my view is. I think I'm sure many of may not agree on this. But with lots of experience, this is what I always feel, that we are technology enablers, not the technology implementers.
I think, we all should and would agree on what you just rightly said, Satish. I think it's trying to transition from being technology implementers to technology enablers. And of course, let's take people into confidence, adopt or perish. So I think very, very well put. And since we do not have questions, and anyways, we have overshot the time even from 5:15. I think, but very, very interesting session. Let's just take 30 seconds takeaways from our speakers before ending it. So Harsh, let's start with you. Quick 30 seconds takeaway.
Three things. Zoom out, look at it in entirety, the risk, the hackers, your friends, your enemies, your own readiness. And then, in fact, time to go back to the drawing board and reassess. That's one. Throw out. I think some of the technologies have become rotten. Just throw them out. A lot of people need reskilling. Don't throw them out, but reskill them. Reskill them on a continuous basis. A couple of seminars and so-called PPTs through LMS is not going to help anymore. It has to be a very, very continuous effort. Last but not the least, learn from the hackers, reach out to people, reach out to experts. You know, Pranav gave a great example. EDR, now it's become XDR. Okay, these are all selling techniques, by the way. Okay, a lot of EDR companies want to make it an XDR just because they collect some data from cloud and say now become XDR. For all you know, your next generation security operations center has already got the capability of doing an XDR because it collects telemetry from cloud, from IoT, from every single look and corner of your IT estate. So I think these are the three things which stand out for me.
Perfect. Zoom out, throw out, I think very interesting points. Pranav, let's now take up you over here.
So I think very crisply and very short. I think I have been always, on the implementation and audit side of it. And very recently, I completed an ISO certification from one of the organizations. So, we have a concept of plan, do, check, act, and then basically keep on repeating that. Right. So I would possibly put my ending notes in terms of the PPT, which we have been talking about a lot, people, process, technology. So I think for the people to benefit the organization, which we want that to be a road ahead, right? Technology, obviously has to be the enabler instead of looking at a roadblock. Technologies have to support, or the processes which we are defining have to support the technology, so that the use of technology is very well explained to the people. And then we can do wonders with the people, trying to make them understand, trying to train them, trying to make them aware of things. But this circle has to be definitely completed within the organization of joining the PPTs together, so that it becomes a success parameter for the organization. I think I would put it that way.
Very much knitting PPT is so critical today. Govil, your last thoughts.
I think problem is complex, right? But this problem can be solved, right? With little better security, we can solve all these technological problems. So maybe my last point is real cybersecurity actually starts from our homes, right? So we need to educate. We need to start that education from our homes only, so that our parents, family members, right, kids should be safe online when they are connected to internet. That's my last say actually on this.
Perfect. I do understand we have one question, but I think we will have to answer it after the session. Apologies for that. And I totally agree with you, Govil. The cybersecurity, real cybersecurity starts at home. And yes, for each one of us, the biggest takeaway is the problem can be solved. And of course, with investments in people, let us hope that Cyber Gurukul is also able to make a bigger impact here by together being that, enabling, engaging, and empowering each other. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for other sessions.
Thank you everyone.
Good
Take
stuff.
care.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you so much, Harish,
Thank you.
Govil, and Pranav. Amazing
you.
insight. And Satish, I always love your interesting inputs. And Vijaya, you too. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for having us. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.